I've been really fascinated by the structure of story lately. And in some of my early episodes, I talked about the fact that I didn't really understand what a beat was. And I think that matters. I think that's been a problem. But recently, as I've been thinking through the story, and especially after last week's meeting with Jefferson and Darcy, I started really getting this thing in my head of there's some way to express the structure and relationships of pieces of a story in a way that you can kind of see them and manipulate them, like organize them, restructure, rework as you need. Maybe you structure the pieces in a way so that it's easy to see where the issues are. So I started thinking about that and trying to think of a way to, uh, you know, to represent it. Like maybe that's the code I get to crack. Um, I'm a software engineer for many years, and it feels like programming, right? Except in the case of computer code, you're writing your concepts in a language that the computer then can interpret and run. Like, it makes it come to life. In the case of stories, there's no computer that can compile that, at least not right now. But, and I'm a little bit embarrassed that I'm sitting outside where other people might hear me. So if you see me looking around sheepishly, that's what that's about. But the story structure is actually executed in the human mind. Like, we fill in the blanks, we interpret the story whether or not it's good or not. I think one of the hallmarks of a really good screenwriter or any kind of writer is probably the ability to hold all of that in their head and kind of see the live structure of it. So I do think there's some value in having a tool that allows us to externalize that somewhat. I am nowhere close to the guy to figure that out, but I think it's been really helpful trying, and I don't think I should stop. But in the process of doing a little research and starting to draw structures and thinking about the pieces and elements of story, I came across Story Grid. Sean Coyne, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And I'm just barely getting into it, but I was really impressed by what it is, because it seems like he's really focused on wanting to kind of take a systematic approach to breaking down story, and in the process of looking at some of his work and some of his articles, I'm looking at what a beat is, and I'm going, holy cow, this is the thing. And actually, initially, it wasn't holy cow that this is the thing. Initially, it was, okay, I think they're mixing up two things here and calling it a beat. And my thought was that there's this whole cause and effect thing that happens that is mixed in, kind of just the reality piece, cause and effect mixed in, and then there's this kind of emotion arc piece. This is my processing, right? I'm just repeating it. And I thought maybe they were mixing those two together, and I could separate them and then figure out how do you segue from one to the other. And I started doing a breakdown of that. And as I'm breaking it down, I'm starting to go, wait a second, like, if I just look at cause and effect, what, I'm a physicist, right? what is this got to do with the story? Like, something happened and that made something else happen. That's not, like, if that's all you have for your story, it's nothing special. Nobody wants to read that story. Nobody wants to watch that movie. It is the emotional value. It's the human struggle. And so as I'm digging into this concept in my head, I find myself coming back to the idea of the beat, and it's kind of working. I'll see if I can remember the pieces. There's the inciting incident. Something. To me, that's kind of like a context. I'm still working on this, so don't take me as a gospel. I'll look up Story Grid if you want to. And that's kind of the context, the setup for this thing that can take place. Now there's people watching me. This is fun. And so there's the setup for it. Then there's the progressive complications, I think is the term that Sean uses. And it's things that kind of happen that kind of force this. Okay, we've got a problem that we need to address, and things are not going to be easy. And he's got a lot of stuff on that. Like it was like just diving into an ice cream sundae. There's so much stuff there. I couldn't eat it all in one sitting. But it's it's things are getting more complicated. There's an actual problem, and you're going to have to take some action, and it leads you to the crisis, which is a question you have to make a decision. The main character, a character, has to make a decision. Are you going to do this thing at this expense or that thing at that expense? And indecision is a decision. And then there's the climax, and yeah, slipping in my mind exactly how that plays out, but it's the thing that ultimately happens, I guess. You make the decision, and then you see the fallout happen. And then there's resolution, which I'm also a little bit fuzzy on still. But it seems to be about some of the stuff I was reading from Sean is interesting, because like there's this external story, and then there's the internal story, and resolution is about kind of exposing or explaining the how the story ends from the internal perspective, the resolution. But I think there's a lot more for me to learn about that. But I've dug into it enough to go, okay, I need to study this stuff. There's so much for me to learn, and I need to stop pretending like I have it. I don't know. I'm not sure I was pretending like I have it, but I keep on setting these deadlines for myself. I'm like, I got to get this done by such and such time, and I don't know if it's because I think that I have to impress my audience of one on this channel. I think Jefferson watches it too, so he and I makes two. Or if it's some sense of like, if I don't get it done by a certain point, then I'm not accomplishing enough. But I realized that this story that I have in my head, when I feel rushed to get it done, I fall out of love with it a bit. And when I think that it's an adventure of figuring out how do I take this magical adventure in my head that I really resonate with and enjoy, and turn it into something that other people can feel. Like if I think about that, like I want to chase that. I want to learn how to do this effectively. I want to learn how to tell these stories and communicate the magic that I experience. And for that reason, I think I'm going to call off my get it done by December, end of this year. And I keep saying this, try not to make deadlines for myself. They're not helping me. I think that maybe setting writing goals, making space to sit down and actually think about these things is more important than deciding when they're going to be done by, when I don't even know what it's going to take to get them done. I'd also talked to Jefferson earlier this week and told him this idea about kind of creating a way to code story bits. I even came up with a name for it. I was going to call it Story Bones. It's a cool idea. Like if somebody invents it, I'll use it. I think it'd be cool. Maybe I'll invent it someday, but I don't think I'm there yet. But he had me do the spreadsheeting thing I showed in one of the previous videos of breaking down the episode into sequences, and sequences into scenes, and scenes into beats, I think it was. He might have gotten that from Sean Coyne or the Story Grid. I'm not sure, because Sean's got something going on there that has to do with the spreadsheet, and he's always talking about breaking these things down and how the 5 components of a beat are they appear in the scenes, they appear in the sequences, they appear in the they appear everywhere, and even the whole story has that kind of flow to it, and that's kind of interesting. Be interesting to chat with Jefferson and Doris now that I've found this guy. Maybe that's where they've gotten some of their inspiration from. I don't know. But Jefferson, if you watch this, I might be going back to spreadsheets sooner than I thought. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's enough said for tonight. I haven't written anything today, but I've done a whole lot of thinking about the structure of the story, and if anything, I've gotten more excited that it can be so much better than it is now, even though it's so much better than it was then. I don't know how many times I'll go through this, but if it takes me 10 rewrites to really capture the magic, so be it. And if all I ever do is chase the magic, my life is still something to be grateful for, and I'm not going to be sad that I did that. I'm not making a living off this right now. If someday I do, that might be fun, but that's not even really my aspiration. I have a pretty decent life. I really just want to learn how to do it, and I want to learn how to tell the stories. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to Bootstrap. cinema where we don't know what we're doing, but we keep on doing it anyway. Good night.